prepared.
Derek yelled last week, we're not supposed to start the song or the show with a song. So I'm going to do a little poem.
No, I said we should start the podcast with music. You then proceeded to sing, and I said, but not that way.
But not that way. Can you sing solo, as in solo, we can't hear you? Oh, that usually kills. Okay, moving on.
That was me singing so low you couldn't hear me.
Oh, okay. Wow, that felt very Seinfeld. Welcome to the car show about nothing, no driving gloves. So what is our topic today?
Do you know that Seinfeld actually wasn't designed as a show about nothing? They just mentioned it somewhere on one of the scripts of the show that it was a show about nothing. And then it caught on that it was a show about nothing.
Interesting. This has been a week where I've had a lot of myths busted. Like I just heard on a podcast that the Polish cavalry didn't actually charge panzers with lances, which is, I got to give the Polish credit there. It seems like a futile gesture. And, what else did I learn? That there wasn't as much cutting off of hands in the Congo Free State as it seemed initially, although still terrible place. Would not recommend.
That was one,
which is car related because they were collecting rubber, of course. I guess they realized they were extracting ivory mostly from the Congo up until Dunlop discovered the pneumatic tire in the 1870s, 1880s. Seems weird.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, and the bicycle craze took off.
You go back about 2 years, we have a short on the creation of tires.
Yeah, actually, I think I did. Yeah, I don't remember if you or I did it, John, but yeah,
you did it because I just deleted the files out of my email. They're still on my hard drive.
There we go.
So it was, I guess the deal was that they had a lot of rubber in the Congo, but it was wild rubber from rubber vines and not rubber trees, and it's a lot harder to collect vine rubber, and nobody wanted to go do it, so they had to really be brutal with the forced labor to get people to do it. And then they knew they had to collect as much as they could in about 20 years, because within 20 years, all the rubber plantations that people started when the bicycle craze caused the pneumatic tire to take off would become ready to produce, and then wild caught rubber, as it were, would no longer be an economical thing. But it was still important enough that I guess it was a major rubber supplier for the Allies during both world wars. So
you never hear too much about Africa being involved in either one of the world wars, do you? I mean, other than the Mediterranean coast area.
Right, yeah. But there were battles, especially between different factions of the French, because the French had huge African holdings, and then some of them stayed loyal to Vichy, and then some of them said, no, we're in with de Gaulle, and they fought each other, and then they fought the other allies, and the Italians had interests in there. Africa was definitely a backwater theater, but very interesting. But we don't hear about it because there were very little American participation. But one of the things that America touched on was I think it was the uranium for the first atomic bomb was all mined in the Belgian Congo, and getting it back to the United States, I think, was a pre-U.S. entry into the war thing to keep it out of German hands after the fall of Belgium. Quite the cloak and dagger tale that could be a really interesting story to dig into.
Well, and as I recall, didn't Germany have some U-boat docks on the Atlantic coast of Africa that they were using for their Atlantic hunting?
I did not know that, but it's entirely possible, because they would have, kind of been able to lean on, I guess, the French. I did just hear that one of Hitler's pre-war demands in order to not invade Poland was that the the Allies restore all of Germany's pre-war colonies, which would be a lot of Africa and some of the Pacific. That didn't come to fruition, obviously, but it's interesting that they were still in kind of the public consciousness. Hermann Goering's father was one of the African high officials, and of course the Nazi brown shirts came from World War I African uniforms that had never made it to German East Africa.
Well, we're talking about Africa, and any of you ever like done a road trip or traveled in Africa?
But I have no.
What do you, Dakar?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
I travel in Dakar all the time.
Yeah,
Sometimes
no, man, the Sahara scares the snot out of me. Like that's a really big area into which you could just disappear forever. And the idea of like just driving a car through the trackless desert is like, I'd do Baja, but I couldn't do a trans-Saharan rally. That's a bit much for me. I stay out of the Amazon. I won't drive my Corvair through the Darien Gap. I don't want to do Dakar and have to like rip apart my Peugeot and turn it into a motorcycle in the middle of the desert because I'll just.
That was a Citroen. That was a 2CV.
Sorry.
Get it right.
I was driving through, coming out of Mississippi yesterday, and driving along this. I guess it was actually a 4-lane, and just kind of looking, and if I just fell asleep, I could drive right off this road, and with good enough luck, drive right into those woods, and nobody would ever find me.
Well, they all the time are like, hey, we just found a family that disappeared in 1950 when we dredged this river up.
Yeah.
Like, they just missed the bridge in the middle of the night, and nobody ever found them.
Yeah, just thinking,
amazing how easy it is to disappear.
Then for the next 3 or 4 miles, I'm watching and go, yep, there's a gap there that the car would fit perfectly between all those trees. And, as long as you didn't get bogged down before you got to the trees, poof, and who would ever find me?
Yep. Drive right out into the swamp and sink. And
I've got all my electronics.
Around where my wife grew up in the Thumb, there are huge drainage ditches because, of course, back when that was all covered in pine trees, it was very marshy. So to get all that water out of there to this day, you've got to have these huge ditches. And in the winter, they're all covered in snow. And it's and I don't know if it's true, but my father-in-law likes to tell this horrifying story about this old couple in a Buick that just went off in a snowstorm and got covered over, and they didn't find them till the spring.
I believe that. I totally believe it could happen.
I mean, I kind of grew up in that area too, Dave. I don't remember where your wife's from. Which town was she from?
Caro, Tuscola County.
That's right. Yeah, Caro. Which not far from where I grew up, right?
No, I mean, you're just the other side of Saginaw, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got those same drainage ditches because where I grew up was all the swampland that got pushed back to create the big farms that are there. And I mean, I remember as a kid, every winter that you'd hear sirens, and sure enough, they'd be coming down one of the roads and stop along the side of the road to, go down in and get the people out of the car that slid off and down into the 30, 40 foot deep drainage ditches that led to all the main rivers. So, I mean, they were right around the corner from my house growing up as a kid, the farm. And yeah,
but never anybody left till the spring, right? Like that.
Well, no, I mean, in our era of growing up, it was a lot easier to, get attention and make sure people knew that you had off into the ditch. It wasn't the
I remember my mom carrying a big cell phone. Like, remember the bag phones that were like?
Yeah, I've got one right back here.
Yeah. Do you really?
Of course, John does.
Yeah. Talk about battery tech that's come a long way. But, and the cost of a plan like that. So, I remember that phone being around, my parents being like, don't ever make a call on this unless it's in a dire emergency. But, it was like that. Like, you felt very remote driving north of Whitehall back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, and I take for granted today that now I'll not only be able to make a phone call, but also have turn-by-turn navigation basically anywhere I go, thanks to the miracle of the cell tower. Like, it's a long way from concrete arrows in the countryside, isn't it? Or telephone poles painted different colors to tell you what route you're on. But I do miss phone booths. Like it was nice to kind of know that you could make a phone call without Oh my, wow, that is a big one, John.
That's
John
what
is,
she said.
Whoa. Wow.
wow. I walked into that.
I trade like I was talking. This was my dad's original cell phone from 1985.
Okay, that beats my mom's by a good 10 years, I think.
He had the second cell phone in Peoria, Illinois, and he went from a radio phone to this. And my first bag phone, which I got in '88, was much narrower, and but I don't know.
Well, it's like computers really advanced rapidly through that same era, kind of in lockstep. Like I remember we had this IBM 286 in 1985, 86, and that was hot snot, the best thing in computing. And it was so good that my parents wrote it through like 1996. I watched the 386, the 486, the early Pentiums all march by. And then I finally got like a Pentium 133 in like the mid 90s. And I went from being like the first kid to learn DOS and everything to be like the only DOS user left.
I had a 386 and a 486 IBM XT and then an AT. And then I kind of got out of it. I mean, I had the Commodores and then I got the IBMs. And then my first modern computer was a Packard Bell 166 megahertz.
I remember the 166s, yeah.
With 32 gigabyte hard drive. I think it was.
This is making me want to build a desktop again. I don't need one. I need a computer like I need a hole in the head. But wow, yeah, memories.
Yeah.
I could mega squirt the Cadillac. That would be kind of an exercise in 80s computing, you know, because I'd be interfacing with all of that old tech.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, my dream for the Cadillac would be to put an LS3 in it and a 4L60E, and, you know, it would be just honestly, I would be very happy with like a 4.8 because it'd be a slight bump in displacement, a considerable bump in power. You'd tap into all of that all the LS aftermarket, but I don't need anything crazy, right? I just need something that's appropriate to propel that car and would do it with a little more guts than the 4.1. And isn't going to eventually break its crankshaft, which is what everybody tells me the 4.1 is.
And then once you have that built, you will drive through Africa.
Not in the Cadillac, though. Do I look at Idi Amin? I mean, the tour of Uganda from the back seat of a Mercedes 600.
Hey, you never think that slight, you know, half a liter bump or something will do anything. I've got a friend right now who's swapping his Cayman from a 3.4 4-cylinder to a 3.86 out of a 911 into it. You know, it's only 0.4 of a liter, and then it's 2 more cylinders, but that sucker's good.
I think the cylinder count's a big factor there too. I mean,
yeah.
you get more explosions in the same amount of time. That's a good thing.
Yeah. More explosions is always good. I learned that from a couple yellow guys on TV. Mm-hmm. Fire's good. Fire's good.
Yeah, but the timing's critical. If the explosions don't happen in the right order, bad things happen.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to figure out when I'm
or even at the right time.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Timing. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you said the order, but also.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
Order and timing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting esoteric.
We do that almost every week. It happens now that you join the show. Never happened before.
I'm an esoteric kind of guy. Like, you know, I can't dance.
I can't sing.
So Derek says. I believe in you. We'll get you voice training.
The only thing about me is the way I walk. So
the way I walk is just the way I walk.
No, you totally missed that, Dave.
I guess I did.
Yeah, because you said
The
you
only-
can't dance. He said I can't sing. And I said the only thing about me is the way I walk.
I think that must be a reference from like the donut hole in my knowledge.
Well,
Is that like an
actually,
80s
it should
movie
be
reference?
reversed. It should be.
It should have been reversed, but it was
Yeah,
close
I
enough to
can't
where we
sing,
won't get
I
sued.
can't walk. The only thing about me is I can't sing. I can't dance. The only thing about me is the way I walk. It's very car related because this guy really made a name for himself in Miami Vice.
Don Johnson?
No, Phil Collins.
Phil
Oh,
Collins
Collins,
was in
baby.
Miami Vice? Oh, did he play the drums in the movie?
Well, he played the drum. He actually was on a couple of episodes. A lot of his music was used during the episodes. He had a song, and I can't remember if it was with him or Genesis that actually put it out. I Can't Sing, and that was one of the lines.
Okay. This is ringing a bell now. I was never a big Genesis fan, but which is obviously showing right now.
I was never a big Genesis fan. I was a Miami Vice fan, and the songs played on
I
Vice.
loved Miami Vice, but I vaguely remember when it was on TV when it was new, but I mostly watched it in reruns. It was like on after school when I was in like early high school. I used to walk to my grandmother's and like binge watch.
There's a really interesting conversation I've been thinking about. If Miami Vice was done today, and basically I'm going to lead it down this path and maybe not the path we were going to go. If we take TV shows from, say, the 70s and 80s, if they were done now, what cars would they use? So if you take,
I do this a lot, but I backdate them.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah,
because I'm like Magnum PI. What if he drove a Fiat from the 20s and he was in Newport, Rhode Island instead of Honolulu, Hawaii? Is that a bridge too far?
I think that's a bridge. It's definitely to me because when I go old Fiat, all I think is that 16 or 28 liter thing that they show.
No, not that old. Not that old. Think like mid 20s to early 30s.
The Beast of Turin or
Freak.
Mephistopheles.
No,
yeah, I think I must have heard it on a podcast because they were talking about like what would The Sopranos, if it was a new show today, drive.
Yeah, I get that. My problem is that I just don't care enough about modern cars to have a productive conversation.
Let's do it your way, though, Dave. That's interesting because what was brought up about The Sopranos is the reason Tony drove he had the Escalade, but he had him rip out all the GPS shit, as he said, because he didn't want the car to be tracked. Now there's no choice. There's nothing he could buy other than maybe a slate. Other than they track them by charging, that would be that way. But what if The Sopranos was in the 60s, 50s or 60s, which I guess is easy because that would be.
Yeah, you've got a lot of mob movies from that era to model yourself on, and it's Cadillacs and Imperials and maybe the occasional slab-sided Lincoln.
Well,
gorgeous cars.
If you go The Sopranos to
Lincoln,
today, I mean. Yep. You've got Tulsa King with Stallone, and I mean he's all about navigators and stuff, because Lincoln's paying for it. And I actually want to say he ended up going to a GM at the very end. It's like they were using Lincolns, and then somebody stepped up and said,
"Ford pulled the money."
Yeah,
we've gotten our marketing's worth out of you, or we haven't.
Nobody Ford stepped back. Cadillac was like,
yeah. Ford didn't up the money, and then all of a sudden GM said, "Hey, this is a good show. We're going to give you some money."
Well, that's like you watch early 60s Disney movies, and it's all new Fords. It's Falcons and Galaxies and Fairlanes everywhere. Like the Absent-Minded Professor is the perfect example. Like we all think of the Flying Model T, but he terrorizes another professor in a Thunderbird, and somebody's got a Mercury wagon, and this cleaning lady drives a Falcon, and it's clear it's product placement that Ford must have said, well, just use nothing but Fords in these movies.
It's the every time I think of Herbie the Love Bug, all the Fords in the movie stick out.
Like, yes, you can use this Volkswagen as the star, but everybody else needs to drive a Ford. Well, and I think the opposite is probably true too. Whereas, like in that era, GM was basically unassailable, and so like GM didn't give money. I think that's the number one reason they pull out of racing is they were like, this can only be bad for us. Like somebody's going to kill themselves in a 409 and people are going to be like, we need to stop this and we need to go after GM for it. Whereas they're like, people are winning with these cars anyway, so we're just going to have zero support for it and let these cars make their name without us doing anything because it's the best from a PR perspective. Whereas Ford, with that number 2 silver medal, hungry Hertz rent-a-car attitude, is like, speaking of Ford users, they were like, we gotta go all out total performance to like, so people think of us like they already think of GM. And then Chrysler stumbled into performance by accident by downsizing their cars and not their engines. But I digress from the films, and I like this idea because, and you know, mob movies are the classic ones because you've got the 20s cars with the big Packards and the, again, Imperials and the Cadillacs again. And what, did any mobsters drive Peerlesses or I guess some of them like Duesenbergs, right? Although I'm hard pressed to actually name them.
Yeah, there were Duesenbergs.
No, Duesenbergs are always the rich and famous Hollywood types. Mobsters are always Cadillacs and Lincolns, and
I definitely associate Cadillacs and Packards mostly with, and LaSalle's. Wasn't a LaSalle used in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Of course, they were masquerading as cops who would never roll in a full-fledged Cadillac. I could see maybe a particularly well-heeled Chicago detective driving a LaSalle, I guess.
Yeah, and there were Lincolns. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the old V8 Lincoln was a mechanically excellent car. I don't know what I'd pick in a car chase in the 20s from that bunch, because I guess whatever had the durability, and for that you might want the Leland machine, because those fork and blade V8s were good stuff.
So what would Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files drive today?
Oh boy, do they still make an F body?
And don't go with, well, he was driving, you know, the Esprit Firebird, which was really a Firebird 400. He was driving an Esprit Firebird, is, you know, it's what was depicted, not what was really there.
Is there any implication that car is actually like hopped up or anything? As in, like, yes, it's an Esprit, but he's also stripped the smog stuff and he's got an aftermarket set of headers on it.
In the show, no, because that really was a super high performance Trans Am disguised as an Esprit.
Right. It's sort of like the Tokyo Drift Mustang. The one that they did all the stunts with had to be an actual V8 car because their detuned turbo that they fit in there didn't actually propel the car.
Yeah, it's kind of like, go back to Miami Vice. The Corvette had to look like something else because a Corvette just wasn't going to be right.
Didn't they disguised it as a Ferrari?
Yeah.
and then although I mean, like, an 80s Corvette doesn't seem cocaine enough. Like, wow, that's a powerful statement.
Well, an 84 Corvette. Now, what would the A-Team drive today?
Probably an SUV. I mean, honestly, like a big overbuilt Suburban or something, because like it's got to be tactical, right? Like something they can like throw around through a car chase off road, and you know that. But it's still like luxurious and roomy enough to be like a van.
I'm leaning to.
Come on! They'd get a Ford Transit.
That's a great vision. Well, that's actually what John needs, is a Ford Transit painted like the A-Team.
Well, the Transit would be available all-wheel drive now too, which would help them. But I just, for some reason, I can kind of see them doing a Rivian.
That would be interesting.
In our
because they're well, and they're do-gooders, right? Like it fits. Like they're outrighting wrongs. They're not just like a mindless arm of violence of some like government.
Yeah, and when they're trying to save the helpless whatever in the middle of the Mojave, and they run out of gas, now all of a sudden they can MacGyver a solar system to charge the vehicle.
Truly off-grid transportation.
Oh, different.
I like that because
blending shows, you do that.
But no, the A-Team always did that. You know, you always had about 40 minutes, 42 minutes into the show, they would have the montage of building some sort of tank out of 3 chickens and 2 eggs and a wire whisk, you know.
And crossover shows are classic 80s, like, it's Simon and Simon meets Murder, She Wrote in a double episode where one series gets the first episode and the second one gets the finale. So you're forced to watch two different shows on the network.
Now all of a sudden it pops into my head. Do you remember the show Hunter?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen
They
it.
drove a Dodge Daytona, about an 84 Dodge Daytona. What would you replace that
Wow.
with today?
Literally anything. No. I mean, the obvious answer is probably a Charger sedan, right? And then they can have random electrical problems that keeps them stranded most of the time.
I honestly would probably go with a Mini Cooper.
Oh, I like that. That's the same attitude, that front wheel drive, but still sporty.
Because it was her car and it was sporty, so it'd be a girl's car, and kind of police-ish. And
did you ever watch Veronica Mars?
Okay.
Like the first Kristen Bell vehicle?
I watch everything Kristen Bell's in. I like her as an actress.
You remember the Woody LeBaron convertible she drives in that?
Oh,
because
yeah.
they wanted something that had like character, and yet was conceivable that a not very rich teenage girl might be able to drive and afford. And I thought that was a pretty clever piece of casting for that automobile. And a friend of mine was just talking down the K car the other day to me, and so it's a reminder that not everyone sees those cars with great nostalgia.
Now, see, we had a 84 Dodge 600 ES turbo convertible, which would have been the Dodge version of that Woody convertible, because that was a LeBaron, and the LeBarons were the Woodies. What would she drive? What would be the not very affluent high school girl car today? Because it seems every kid doesn't work now and gets a car bought for them. But what would Veronica drive today if that show was?
I mean, an older Mini Cooper actually might be a good choice, or if you wanted the convertible, perhaps a Volkswagen Beetle. The new Beetle.
I might go Beetle over the Mini, because the Minis are very problematic. Of course, the Volkswagens can't.
So were the Volkswagens.
When you get up to a higher mileage.
At this point, like, name a 15 or 20-year-old car that isn't a ticking time bomb, that has some character. Like, yeah, there's probably Corollas and stuff running around, but is that really
I think she would probably drive a yeah. Well, I guess convertible. Yeah, I was going to say probably a Dodge, one of the newer Dodge Darts that's 10 years old or so.
Are those that old at this point?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I have the ultimate. I think I have the ultimate question for TV show with a car. What would Columbo drive today in place of the Peugeot?
That's tough, because that's such a part of his character, like the rumpled genius.
I've got it in my mind, but I can't think of it.
How about a 62 Corvair?
No.
That would be older than his Peugeot.
What year was the Peugeot? We featured it. I should know this, but I don't.
No, it was a 59.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was a couple of years older. Oh, man. That's such a random, weird car. Like, didn't they just walk by it on the studio lot and go, that's the one. That's the one this weirdo would drive. There's just nothing like that. When did Columbo start? Like late 70s? How old was the Peugeot?
Probably.
We're going to say 20 years.
Let's say 15 to 20 years old. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2005.
It's a 2005 car.
What was the French building? Nothing you could buy here in 2005, and unlikely he would buy a gray market. So something small, niche from that era. I don't know, guys. I'm baffled.
Well, that's because it's a small niche car that it wouldn't be popular. It has to be one of those.
How about a Morgan?
Car. Morgan, too expensive.
Yeah, you're right.
Too expensive and
unlikely to be found in
flashy.
ratted out condition.
Too flashy.
I mean, honestly, maybe he would drive the old Corolla. Maybe that's the thing.
I was thinking like a Lexus ES 300 or something.
Oh,
is that? Forgive my ignorance. Is that the fancy version of the Toyota?
No, that's the down market. The LS is the big sedan. The ES was the one based off of the Camry, basically. I mean, they run forever, but they're not everybody has one. You could do a it's getting to
were
be
Aztecs in that era?
No. Wait, which Lexus did you say, John?
The ES 300.
No. I think it would have been the SC 430, that ugly convertible. Because remember, the Peugeot was a cabriolet.
Yeah, see, I don't think the SC 430 was an ugly car. I love the SC 430s.
Oh, really?
I always remember him sticking that light up on the top.
There's the car, an SC 300 or 400. The sport coupe that preceded the SC 430. That might be it.
I don't know, guys. I'm thinking Aztec still. I really like that as an answer. Probably like a bright yellow one. Like the more time goes on, the more him pulling up in a not very nice yellow Pontiac Aztec, like maybe missing a hubcap, the more incongruous that becomes. And it's a weird car with a lot of personality, and one that people will argue all day with you was like really just brilliant and ahead of its time and unfairly maligned for its look.
Well, Clayton corrected.
It sounds like people talking about French cars.
Clayton corrected us. The first episode of Columbo was February 20th, 1968. So it was a 10-year-old car.
Okay,
wow,
now we got more to work with. We got more to work with.
Then I would
2015.
If it's 10 years old.
Of course, cars last longer now than they did in the 60s. I mean, a 59 is a much older car in 68.
10 years old, I would probably still stay in the Lexus, but I would be the 200H. I can't think of what the prefix is. The kind of early hybrid 4-door hatchback Lexus. Or would it be a Prius? Would it be like a second generation Prius? Which is a very niche car, really.
I don't know, man. I need pictures for this. I can't picture any of those Lexuses. Oh, Lexi. What about a Mercury? What
Marauder?
was the big? No, that would be very cool, but that's too much for Columbo.
Grand Marquis.
No, the Crown Vic, the Marquis, the Grand Marquis. Just put him in an old Grand Marquis. That's 2011 was the last year for those, so that's
that was a cop
kind of 10 years. Yeah, but the Mercury was not. And don't put him in the Mercury. Don't put him in the policey version. It does. But have you seen what the police drive today? Like a Panther's going to look incongruous in that setting anymore, especially if it's not black or dark gray.
No, because I actually see some current police cars that are still Crown Vics and.
Oh yeah.
Wow, so, you got some cheap departments around you, man. Everybody around here is an SUV or a
couple departments that bought like 100 Crown Vics or not Crown Vics. Crown Vics, because they liked them and that's what everybody was trained on. So they bought them so they could use them for another 10 years.
Yeah, but that's 14 years now. I mean, this is a long time past the end of production. I mean, they just got to stockpile those things and just cannibalize. I mean, good for them. That's my kind of philosophy, but it just shocks me in this day and age, especially when most police departments are very well funded and have armored cars and stuff.
Now, actually, one of our local police departments, and the chief's running for mayor now. Go political and say I support him, but he. One of the big things they do is they run their police cars to about 100,000 miles, and then they sell them with all the equipment in them to lesser police departments that don't have the budget to buy brand new police cruisers.
How many hours are on a 100,000-mile police car? Like, think about how much idling time that is. Oh my God.
Oh, Clayton's got a good one. Columbo
Volvo
would
240.
probably drive a Volvo 240.
My beloved
might
son
be.
really wants a Volvo 240. Like, we just saw 3 rotting in a field in northern Vermont, and he about cried. He's like, "Oh, those poor Volvos." Yes, love those. Great car. Very,
That-
very good Columbo distinctive, and yet not too impractical because it's a very durable car.
That might be the winner.
All right, Clayton, stamp done. We need a new show. What show are we talking about next?
I might throw out. I might Volvo or maybe a Saab. I could see him with a Saab.
I got one that's probably
Saab 900.
impossible. Do you guys know the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World?
Nope.
No of it. I don't know that I've ever watched it.
Oh, well, you need to. It's set. It was made and is set in the early '60s. So there's just scads of like mid '40s through mid '60s cars in it everywhere. I mean, there's a whole scene where they like a guy gets angry and tears apart a service station with his bare hands. Guy jumps out of a second story window into the driver's seat of a Dodge Dart convertible and drives away. And his lover runs out the front door and goes, "Wait, that's my husband's car." And I mean, it's just, but cars are so central to it because it starts with a car wreck that all these people witness and realize that they now know where a secret treasure is hidden. Yeah, Clayton says it's a 3-hour masterpiece, and he's right. It's absolutely hilarious, very car-centric. And the cars are all, they're very much characters, like Phil Silvers, who everybody remembers as Sergeant Bilko.
But
he
that's
drives like a...
that sounds
Sorry?
like a movie. That sounds like a movie, not a TV show.
It is.
He said it's a
but it's a similar concept, yes.
But let's I mean, so on this theme, and we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but I mean, we're getting on to, TV shows where cars are central characters. I think we did it more on the movie scene. On the one show we did within the last few months, I think we did, movies and cars, but we're now kind of on that theme of, what TV shows are so car centric. And I mean, I liked Clayton's response earlier because I had the same thought in my head was the Aztec is forever going to be connected with Walter White. There's no choice there. I mean, that's just
I watched all of Breaking Bad and I've totally forgotten that he drove an Aztec. But yes, I understand. I remember that as a cultural touchstone from back when that show was at its peak. That he did.
Oh,
Carl, and you're right.
Carl, sorry, you came in late. We already did the Rockford Files. You must have missed it.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, but we didn't make the decision.
Oh, I thought we settled on one.
No,
we didn't.
No, we
okay, revisit the Rockford Files. We have a request in the comment section to revisit the Rockford Files.
So, guys, I think it's got to be a Mustang, because if you want a cheap, everyman but kind of sporty pony car from that era, it's not the GM S-body, and it's not the Challenger. It's.
But why wouldn't it be a modern Camaro?
Because there just weren't enough of them, and they weren't widespread enough. Like, even today, when you see a 5th or 6th generation Camaro, it's kind of unusual. Mustangs are not, and that was the point of the Firebird being the cheap version.
Must be because Bowling Green is so Corvette and Chevy centric. Right? There's just new Camaros running around everywhere.
Yeah, but are they like dirty and kind of scuffed up like Jim Rockford's, or are they people's?
Oh yeah, they've been wrecked. They're okay. Probably rebuilt title cars. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, okay, that's unusual because that's not the case most places I go. It's very rare that I see anything other than what's obviously a plaything. Mustangs, on the other hand, are just everywhere, especially 10-year-old ones.
Well, Mustangs
and V6 models and stuff.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Ditches, telephone poles.
They're heavy rental cars, Mustangs, so they end up everywhere. And you're up in Vermont and New Hampshire and all that. So those are going to be toy cars because they're unusable 6 months out of the year.
Only if you can't drive. but I digress.
Why are I want to say why
It's a
are we
Mustang.
why are we sticking to that? Would he potentially
Because he's a private detective. He's got to blend in. If you see an SN95 sitting on a curb, you don't give it a second glance.
But that's now you're talking a 35-year-old car. He was driving a current car. He was driving a 74 car in 74.
Okay, you don't look at Mustangs. They're just less memorable than the GMF bodies, at least around here. And admittedly, what we really need to do is to go to whatever beach town in Southern California he lived in, and figure out what's a somewhat sporty but very blend-in car.
I'm thinking of 1 Series,
go to a stakeout with something cool.
1 Series, 2 Series BMW. You could put him in one of those. You could put him in an Audi. Is it an S5?
I like the Beamer, and the Beamer has the advantage of being kind of Pontiac-like with the kidney bean grille, and the sort of like driving but road, sporty but road-oriented car. I think that might be a winner, and there's probably a bunch of those in California beachfront towns that are just a little bit run down.
Yeah, I mean, they're just the disposable. They're the Veronica Mars car. So if you go back to that,
that's not a bad call for her.
Because you can pick up I had a friend about a year ago sell her. I think she had a 2 Series. It was an early on when they were still kind of doing 1 and 2 Series. And I think it was 10 grand, 9 grand, 10 grand. So that would be perfect for Veronica Mars. Expensive.
Disapproving Cat says a 3 Series for Jim Rockford, and that's probably the right call there because it's just a little bit more performance oriented.
Price wise, it starts pushing it up too high. A newer 3 Series is going to be getting you that 60, 70, where you can get into a 2 Series right now for 40, 45.
I mean, the real answer here is we have to look at the price point that the Pontiac occupied in 74 and say, presumably, our fictional private detective in 25 can afford a similar purchase.
And that's where that's mentally where I'm putting the Firebird, because if he was going to be spending 3 Series money, he would have had a Trans Am. But instead, he had the Firebird Esprit, so he's going to be in the 1 Series.
I'll go with that.
Is that enough car if you're going to be doing Jim Rockford type things in it?
Oh yeah, that's plenty of car.
Okay, and we know Jim Rockford's was secretly hopped up for the show, but is everybody and their brother going to be in a better car in that part of California if they're involved in criminal enterprise and going to leave it in the dust?
But you want nondescript, something that blends in. That's
right, but it's also got to perform because it's the Rockford Files. So, I mean, you got to walk that line. That's why I go back to the Mustang.
Do the Rockford Files thinking he's driving a 1 or 2 Series, but it's actually a 1M. So it's the M Series hidden in that 1 Series car.
Okay, I'll buy that. If the 1M will run down things to the extent, which is what the Rockford
Proving Cat credit, the 1 and 2 Series are not great cars, but the Firebird Esprit wasn't a great car either.
Not a great car.
So,
I mean, I've never driven an Esprit. I have driven that era of Trans Am. What's your complaint with the Esprit? Just not enough power?
I don't think they had the fit, finish, and assembly of the Trans Ams. I think the Trans Ams were a better built car and used a little bit higher quality component.
Interesting. I mean, that's
where the Esprit had lesser suspension, lesser engine. It had more of the run of the mill.
Well, what's really interesting is, I mean, Trans Am fit and finish in the 70s wasn't that great.
Disapproving Cat throws out the Audi S4. I was thinking the 2-door coupe, and I can't think of what the number is. Is it the S5? Disapproving Cat, maybe you can come up with it. The 2-door coupe Audi, I think, would also be a good one for him. A little bit bigger, a little bit faster. And if you really wanted to get into it, it could be the again, you could have the stock looking vehicle with the high performance, whatever S series in there.
It's funny what's nondescript in California, because I see those Audis up here all the time, you know, ski traffic, people go to their second homes and that sort of stuff, and they stick out like a sore thumb.
So we did the Rockford Files.
So
what would Michael Knight drive?
Yeah, if that's Rockford Files. Here's my question. No. Here's my question. This is really for maybe Dave, maybe John.
Okay, I have a Knight Rider answer, but
Would the TV show Route 66 still use Corvettes today?
Absolutely not. Corvette does not occupy the same niche it did. It was a college kid car then, and now it's a retired guy car.
Yeah, Route 66 would be Toyota 86 BRZ Miata.
There you go. Is that good enough for road tripping? I'm not that a 60s Corvette is a great
I can
road
see
tripping
that
car, but
they're all good enough for road tripping. I mean, luggage space is something to be concerned with, but same on a Corvette.
Well, a 60s Corvette being a little bit better than the ones that came later, but yeah, not great. And of course, my dad, who had a 69, said, when you travel in a Corvette, you just bring clean underwear and a toothbrush. I was like, okay.
And that's pretty much what you need in a Miata.
Yeah. So how many pairs of underwear and how much toothpaste do you need to do Route 66 in your? Not that much of the Route 66 TV show actually took place on Route 66 after a while.
I would say there's laundry mats, but then you're going to have to get off Route 66 and the conservation company I used to work for 20 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. The president of the company, he would travel on 4-day road trips, get on the plane, blah, blah, blah. And he had a duffel bag that was maybe this long, about that round, and everything he needed was in it. He would have one extra shirt, 2 pairs of underwear, 2 pairs of socks, and then he would have his satchel with his computer. And that's what he would travel.
The lighter you can travel.
And he never lost luggage and never waited for luggage at the airport. And he'd just do laundry at the hotel.
That was a big reason we started staying in Airbnbs after a while, was because you just can't beat the ability to go home with clean laundry and not to have to pack enough shirts to keep you through 10 days of travel.
All
right. So what's the Knight Rider car?
So I think it's a Cybertruck. Dead silence. I do. I mean, it's either that or you make a RoboCop remake where they merge the guy's brain with a truck. But I just think it's the natural, like, really out there, styling wise thing that's most akin to that generation of Firebird upgraded to Mr. Feeney.
But again, the Firebird or the Trans Am blended in. The Cybertruck, you don't walk, you don't miss a Cybertruck. You kind of need that blend in ability. I mean, the Cybertruck leans to the tech and the indestructible.
How about a Honda Odyssey? Nobody notices a Honda Odyssey.
No performance. I might lean to
put the Pontiac 400 V8 in it.
I'm sticking with you though, Dave. I might lean to a Model S or a Model 3 Plaid.
Okay, those would actually, yeah. Because I mean, isn't the whole shtick that he was upgraded without his consent? I mean, isn't like the Knight Industries thing? That's why he's Michael Knight, is because he belongs to Knight Industries. Seems.
Yeah, because he was Michael Long before his. Maybe a Lucid for him, just to be a little bit off, but have that high performance techie vehicle.
No, I'm sticking with the Tesla.
I was thinking about the Lucid as well, and then Carl here just said the disapproving cat Lucid Air. Yeah, exactly. But also the new ugly Challenger.
What is it about the new Challenger that is ugly? It's like it's more slab-sided than the old one, I guess. Is that the problem?
Well, and the rear roof line is too long, in my opinion. It's
Are you talking about the new Charger?
Terrible rear quarter roof line.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about.
Or the new Charger.
The new Charger. Yeah, the coupe version, which is
Yeah,
what everybody
he said the
says Charger
Challenger.
needs to be.
Sorry.
Yeah. Slab side is back in.
Now,
Then,
see,
then Lincoln needs
I like
all
the
electric or something.
I like the new Charger. I like it electric. If they put a V8 in it, I'm gonna like that. If they put their straight six in it, I think it's a good looking car. I love the way they integrated that wing in the nose. I like the way they've brought back a lot of the retro cues, but not going necessarily retro. But I guess I'm getting old because I'm beginning to like a lot more of that retro-y stuff. Because that's the simple answer. I've avoided the show, but they did a commercial a few years ago where Bo and Luke went and traded the General Lee in, and they came out with an orange Viper that had the 01 on the doors and everything, because the new Chargers were so much faster than the old Charger. And the new Charger's in NASCAR. So to me, the new Charger would be the replacement to the General Lee.
What if you know the movie Thunder Road?
Nope.
What if the Dukes of Hazzard had been set in the 50s at the time the Robert Mitchum movie had been made? What would they have driven in? And would it have to be like a Ford with an overhead valve V8 swapped in? Or is there something more divergent that you could come up with for a moonshiner car?
Hudson Hornet.
Oh, I like that. I like that. How about you, Derek? No.
It's probably too obscure and too rare. But in the 1950s, I mean, just because I'm partial to them, but a Nash Healy.
I don't know. Does that have the cargo capacity that you need in a moonshiner, though? I mean, not that a Charger really does.
I think
it's got a pretty good sized trunk.
I think going to the 50s, though, you still have to, like Dave says, have to be moonshiner. So you have to lean to something that's NASCAR-ish.
Yeah, sedanish.
Yeah,
Rocket 88 or something.
Yeah, I don't think a Nash Healy would survive very well running dirt roads and.
Although that gives me a great idea for a car.
You ever worked on one and see? Have you ever worked on one and seen how they were built?
No.
Are they really robust?
They're a tank. Yeah.
Okay, now I want to see a Nash Healy on black walls, like tackling like a gravel fire road. This sounds amazing. When do we do this?
As soon as I get my hands on the Nash Healy that I'm trying to get my hands on.
Excellent. You're always getting your hands on something cool.
So we started with it.
We're going to have big news on that next month.
We started with it, and we might finish with it. I don't know how many we got left, but we never did. What would you replace the Ferrari Daytona / Ferrari Testarossa in Miami Vice with? What would it be today? Would it be a Ferrari? Would it be a Lambo? Would it be a...
But it wasn't a Ferrari.
Right, but it's supposed to be. In universe, it's a Ferrari. You and I know it's a Corvette, but they don't say that.
It's a McBurney.
I don't know. It's a Lotus. Would that be? I feel like I see a lot of Lotuses.
No, that's not. That's $100,000. It's too cheap.
How much? That's too cheap. Okay.
Remember, the reason he drove a Testarossa, which was $100,000 in 1986, when the average car was $20,000, $25,000. He drove it because he had to portray like he had the money to be a drug dealer. So what?
So what
would,
are we talking? What price range?
I just don't know enough drug dealers, especially not the Miami-based one.
are you? I think you're going to be north of $500,000.
North
So
of
Wow.
half a mil.
is it a Bugatti? Is it is it going to be a Koenigsegg? Is it going to be a Ferrari SF90? Is it going to be the new SVJ Lamborghini, or was the Revolto is the replacement?
I think you got to go with the Ferrari because it's Miami Vice and it requires a Ferrari. That's what people expect. Disapproving Cat says he drove a 488
But-
in the 2018 remake.
but you're
so that's-
creating-
It's a little under. It'd be more like in the 250 to 300 range. But what about like a Bentley Continental?
No.
that. I mean, does we need
Continental
something that's got the potential to be a car chase car? Is a Continental on that
Continental
level?
GTC
Well, the
would be
GTC.
would be a good replacement for Tubbs. Be a good replacement for his
okay, I'll give
Cadillac,
you
but
that.
that would
I'll
be
give you
Tubbs's car. Now, I would go maybe a little bit with Dave on the SF90 Ferrari. I
think a Bentley and a Koenigsegg are too expensive. I think you're going too high there.
well, yeah, you're you're at 2, 3, 4
Or
million.
did I
down.
say the Bugatti? Yeah, Bugatti. You're
I know
looking
what
at
you meant.
millions. That's too much.
If you're at the SF90 is going to probably be 700. I think a 296 is too cheap. He wouldn't do any of the SUVs. The new
I don't know. Escalade's got a lot more car chase possibilities when you don't care about curbs.
the new and this would be way out of your wheelhouse, Dave, but the new Aston Martin Vantage.
I had a coworker.
I got it.
that
I've got
loved
it.
Aston.
McLaren.
That's what I was thinking of when I said Lotus before. Was McLaren.
Yeah,
I think it'd have to be a McLaren.
I don't know.
Don't those come in I'm sure you can get any of these cars in whatever color you want, but aren't a lot of those like orange?
The problem with McLarens is they depreciate so fast. So once you have it for a year or two, you went from $400,000 or $500,000 to 200 to 880. Unlike
Cocaine dealers care about depreciation.
Well, what I'm saying is if you drive a 720 or 750, you can pick it up for big money or little money, and it's hard to tell what you paid for it. You drive that SF90, you paid at least sticker, if not more. You know what he would drive? Porsche 911 GT3 RS or a GT2 RS or a Porsche ST. Those are the three hottest Porsches that are impossible to get a hold of right now. And the latest ST price I saw online was like $700,000 for a car that stickers at like $350,000, $400,000.
Have there been any TV shows where Porsches have been like the protagonist main car? I'm not recalling any Porsche.
Porsche's not big on being in TV shows because they were supposed to be the Miami Vice, or not the Miami Vice, the Magnum PI car. The 928
Really?
was supposed to be on Magnum PI, but Magnum PI wanted the convertible for the overhead shots, and they asked if they could make the 928 convertible, and Porsche said absolutely not. That's why they went with the Ferrari. Partially also that's the only way Magnum would fit in a Ferrari. Tom Selleck would fit in a Ferrari is not having the roof. But I can't think of anything that the Porsche is central to the.
Yeah, me either. Oh, cars.
Huh? Cars?
Oh, Sally Carrera. Yes, iconic.
Sally.
Very true.
Yeah.
She's got that little pinstriping tattoo.
Yeah.
Well, the Porsche came with the whale tail.
That was a perfect reference. There's
Mhm.
a lot of sneaky kind of adult wink wink humor in Cars, actually.
Oh, always.
Yeah, any Pixar film, really. You know, I do want to circle back. I think Neil said Chevy Bel Air Coupe would be a good moonshine car, but I think it's a little too late in the decade. Like, it doesn't have that early 50s Robert Mitchum feel. But as a stunt coordinator, that's the car I'd want. Because think about how many of them you could use up and how easy they'd be
What
to
do you
like,
mean
fix
too
up.
late? It's
I just,
perfect. It, like 52,
I feel like,
53 Bel Air Coupe.
yeah, but he's talking about Tri-5 Chevys. He's not talking about the 50 to 52
He didn't say that. He just
Bel
said
Air.
Bel Air.
Okay, yeah. How much would you have to tune up a 235 to keep this Bel Air Coupe ahead of the revenuers? I mean, I don't feel like
But
that was anybody's first choice.
but in
I mean, on the other hand, I have seen an article.
Hey,
on
they
how to put
hopped
a
it.
Buick
They
together.
hopped him up for the Corvette.
I mean, in '53, that's what they were running in NASCAR.
The Chevy 235.
Well, Bel
They
Air.
weren't having much success with it. But I'm just saying, like, those are not that's not the Moonshiner's engine choice. The 235, great engine. I've driven a couple 54 Chevys, and I think they're fabulous cars. But it's not what I would want if I was hauling alcohol. Now, there were pop-up parts for those engines in that era, but I mean, you can see why the Ford was the obvious choice, and then the overhead valve swaps. Like, if your flathead doesn't make enough power, put an Olds or a Cadillac into it. But a lot of the Ford flathead stuff was made in California, and then they found they had a ready market in the South because of these guys. So I guess, you know, my answer might be 52, 53 Ford if I'm the stunt coordinator, because I think there's a fair number of those out there. Not that they're anywhere near as well supported as a Tri-5 Chevy. I guess I would be willing to be sold on a Chevy Bel Air hardtop as a Dukes of Hazzard substitute set in the early 50s. But I'd have to be sold on it. You'd have to show me Bo and Duke leaning over that 6, working it over, or having swapped in an Olds V8 or something for me to be convinced
yeah.
that doing all that jumps and stuff. I mean, a lot of the early Corvettes got Olds V8s put in them in place of the hopped up Blue Flame 6. So there's precedent for that. A lot, 3, but you know, amongst 53 Corvettes, that's a lot.
Yeah.
No, that was a worthless Google search.
Oh, geez, I thought that you were saying that about my conversation.
Good thing I completed my sentence.
Don't ever speak again, Dave.
That's a great way to end the show.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. This is Dave's last appearance.
Now, I was trying to like Google the best car TV shows, and it comes up with Top Gear and Graveyard Cars and all that bullshit. I want.
Oh yeah, car-centric TV shows of the 80s, 70s, and 80s. Somebody mentioned Dragnet before, and those were probably all Fords, but I haven't seen enough Dragnet to actually say. Remember California or Highway Patrol, Roderick Crawford driving the Buick squad cars in the one season, because that's what the California Highway Patrol actually drove in '55.
Nope, don't remember it.
Well, you know of it?
Nope.
Really? Yeah, the California Highway Patrol used Buick Centuries one year. I think it was 1955. And because Highway Patrol was with Roderick Crawford, which is, you know, where like Brody's come from, that's named after him. They used to beat the snot out of those patrol cars on that show, you know, driving around in a big circle, throwing up gravel to like turn around and chase the bad guys, that kind of thing. And they drove Buicks in the show because they were, even though they never mentioned California, they were just the Highway Patrol. Everything they did was based on what the California Highway Patrol was doing at the same time period. So I guess what they drive today would be whatever the California Highway Patrol is driving today, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Well, we can do this.
Disapproving Cat just pointed out that Burn Notice, #1, great show. The 5th character was a 73 Charger. Fantastic car. That was the best casting for any modern TV show, in my opinion. That 73 Charger made that show.
Is that a fuselage car? That would be a very distinctive character.
And then, of
I
course,
haven't
you
seen it,
had,
unfortunately.
oh, shoot, what was the TV show with the brothers that hunted paranormal? Oh, what was that
Oh,
TV show?
Supernatural, where they drive the 67
Supernatural.
Impala.
The Impala.
Those cars got
that is
a
solid.
big bump in interest from that show.
Yeah.
I got two more.
My problem is
got two more to wrap it up with.
Let's
Starsky
wrap
and
it up.
Starsky and Hutch, and that Torino. There's just nothing like that anymore.
I'm that one. I'm kind of
Yeah.
with you.
All I can offer is, how about we reset it in 1956 and we put them both in like snap brim fedoras, and they're driving a Crown Victoria. It's got that same. It's a Ford. It's got that same kind of hoop style graphic to it. You could paint it red and white, two-tone. Give it a good jazz soundtrack. I'd watch that show.
They just don't make cars like that anymore. I mean,
Oh,
Wow.
Disapproving Cat says Mach E, and that's not a bad choice. Like that seems like it could be a capable police machine. You know, I see a lot of those around here. They're starting to grow on me.
I'm beginning to like the Mach-E. It's proving itself very good. And what's the new high performance version one? Heard good things about it too.
You know, there used to be a Cougar GTE, and that seems like a missed opportunity for somebody building a high performance electric car.
Yeah.
Now the other one I'm going to throw out, and don't answer right away because I'm going to change it to lean it towards Derek. The Fall Guy, but we're going to go ahead and update it 14 years. Walker Texas Ranger.
Oh.
What would he drive today?
Oh, well, wait, hang on. I gotta check something. Hang on, because I have an idea.
I have two
You always know
ideas
it's going to
on
be
it.
a good response when they start with, hang on, I got to check something.
Yeah.
Good information coming here.
Just before I say it, I want to make sure it's still in production. Oh yeah,
Does-
easy.
I'm just
easy.
over here thinking about how much it would suck to get kicked in the face with a cowboy boot. Oh.
Nah, this is easy peasy. Ford F-150 King Ranch.
No,
They make a King Ranch that small? I thought they were all 250s. I haven't stayed up on them though.
yeah. See that was my second choice. F-250.
What's your first choice?
King Ranch. First choice is a Ram TRX.
Oh, I didn't even think about the Ram TRX. You're right. It'd be a Ram TRX first, and then a Ford King Ranch.
Doesn't he have a Bronco in the 90s show?
No, he had a 94 Dodge Ram
Did he really?
2500, didn't he?
Was that a 25? I thought it was only a 1500 series.
Well, in that case, I think the T-Rex is the right choice.
For Disapproving Cat, who said they did not make.
He said they did make a King Ranch and an F-150 that he doesn't.
Oh, they
think
did. I thought it said didn't. I was going to say I've got one right here for sale at a dealership. Sorry, I read his comment wrong. My bad.
Yeah, I knew exactly because I read it wrong in the first place too. See, Sierra.
No, actually,
two
do now.
nights.
There's a 2025 on the lot. There's a 2025 on the lot that I found.
F-150.
Yeah, F-150 King Ranch.
I guess
So then maybe they stopped in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it was a 1500. This broadcast says it was, but I think it had a lift kit in it because it sat a little higher than a standard 150 or 1500, maybe just a leveling kit, but it sat different. It did.
I still think the TRX is the answer there, even though it is out of production.
Yeah, but I don't know. The TRX is a little too performancy. It's too Ford Raptor, right? And that's not what the Ram 1500 was in Walker. That's why I lean to the F-150 King Ranch.
But is it an opportunity? I mean, we could inject because performance trucks weren't a thing when Walker Texas Ranger was on the air.
You had the Ford
not to the same level. Yeah, the Lightning.
No.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I corrected myself. But
I would still lean to that.
I like that conceptually. I just think it's an opportunity to inject more action into what's a show that's sold on action. Like, you chase the bad guys down in your high performance truck, and then you kick them in the face with your cowboy boots.
I mean, you get into your high speed chase and you take off popping a wheelie.
And doing a burnout like Vin Diesel. It's like I'm just that powerful in my TRX.
Well, that's what TRX is. Get on YouTube and watch some of them. They're known for popping wheelies, especially on hills and crashing into.
That's crazy for a truck to have that kind of traction.
What were they pushing? 800 horsepower? 700.
I think it's in the 700 range.
Because the 707 was the original Demon motor, but it's advanced beyond that. So, and I do believe a TRX is also all-wheel drive, or four-wheel drive, but run it in two-wheel drive.
I actually like disapproving Cat's comment on the GMC AT4X because before the Dodge Ram, Walker started out with a silver. I think it was a Silverado. I don't think it was a GMC. I think it was a Chevy Silverado. But I could be wrong. It's the same dang truck, just different letters on it. So he did start. He never used a Ford. So Ford's probably the wrong choice. It probably should either be the Ram TRX or the GMC, Sierra or Silverado.
I guess I'm looking at it as you're not remaking the show, you're casting the show as new, and you're thinking of the attitude of Walker Texas Ranger and what's available today if you were to make the show new. And that's why
you should have mentioned that when we did Miami Vice, and I wouldn't have insisted on casting a Ferrari again.
Well,
yeah, good point. Good point, disapproving Cat. Good point.
The Ram was the unique truck of the day because it was so radically styled.
I remember how cool those.
Everybody ended up following suit. So, well,
I liked Chrysler's Art Deco revival period in the 90s and early 2000s. Like they built some really interesting looking cars. Like nothing I'm burning to own, but I enjoyed seeing them on the roads.
Yeah, you heard
the
that
original
here.
Pacifica.
Breaking news: Dave's picking up a PT Cruiser.
Oh no, no. The PT Cruiser. Hey, the PT Cruiser is one of the nicest looking minivans that existed in that time period, but I'm just not a minivan guy.
It was a minivan.
Yeah. It was the neon wagon, essentially. At least that's what the HHR was with the Cobalt. If I'm going to get plastic wood in my life, it's going to be on a box wagon.
Whoa.
Like an Oldsmobile Cruiser or a Mercury Marquis or a Mercury Colony Park or a Ford Country Squire.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot to stew on. Keep popping some suggestions in as you guys watch this on YouTube throughout the week. We go back and look at those comments and might bring them into some new shows. This is not where we were going to go tonight with any sort of conversation, but this is
it where we ever go
well, it's
or
again
plan to go?
we're just a couple of guys sitting around, quote, having a beer, whatever beverage of choice we have, and bullshitting about cars. That's what this show was meant to be, and we just bullshitted our way through an hour of TV cars. So
Heck yeah.
Thanks for stopping by the garage, guys.
Oh, Dave, you've been working on a tagline. Look at you.
ooh.
I just came up with that. I'm going to start saying it now.
Nice. All right. Well, then I'll finish it by saying my typical thing, which is support us, help us out, buy a coffee, click the little bell on YouTube, give us some likes. And remember, the only way to help the No Driving Gloves community grow is to share the show. So get it out there, guys.
And as I say, it's time to get off your ass and burn some gas because we